Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm going to talk to you about all the films I watched during the month of June. I'll be going over first watches only, not rewatches, though I don't tend to really rewatch anyway. There might be like 2 or 3 across a month. But anyway, today I'm just going to talk to you about the films I have watched during June for the first time. I'm also going to talk to you about some TV shows that I've watched as well. I've got one that I really want to talk about. I don't tend to watch too many series, so we might not talk about TV every month, but today I have 2 I think that I would want to talk about, and one particularly. So I will do all my movies first. I'll just do it in chronological order based on how I watched them, and then I will go on to TV shows. I am using Letterboxd. I've got my laptop open next to me with my Letterboxd diary on it. If you don't know what it is, it's just a social media site basically for film lovers. You can make ranked lists on there, you can have like a watch list, and you can log all the films you watch on the day you watch them, which is obviously how I know when I watched what. So I've got that in front of me. I'll say a little bit about each film. There's a lot to talk about as I watch a lot of movies, so I won't go too much into detail, but most of these, I've got my Letterboxd link down below. There'll be full reviews on there if you want to know more in-depth thoughts. Let's get started. The first film I watched in June was Hotel Mumbai, which came out in 2018. This stars Dev Patel and unfortunately Armie Hammer, but we move. And it's about a terrorist act that occurred in the Hotel Mumbai. It was an extremely harrowing watch, but it was a good watch too. I do highly recommend it. Dev Patel gives an amazing performance. He is one of the strongest actors working today in my opinion, and I don't see many people talk about this film. It did come out a few years ago, but if you haven't seen it yet, I would definitely recommend it. It's harrowing, but it's it's very action-packed. It has good performances, and I think for a movie that's based on a true story, it's worth being on your radar. The next film I watched is Super 8, directed by J.J. Abrams, and this released in 2011, so I am very late to the party with this one, but I absolutely loved it. The best way I can describe Super 8 would be Cloverfield for kids. So don't let that put you off. It can definitely be enjoyed by the whole family of any age, but it kind of has like entry-level horror kind of, you know, first horror film vibes, which I really dug. It's obviously called Super 8 because it's based on a bunch of kids that are using a Super 8 camera to film something. I can't remember what they're filming. I think they're filming like a short movie or something, and they end up catching something that they didn't expect they would catch on film, and I will leave it there. Highly recommend this one. You've got a lot of people in here giving early performances early on in their career. So, for example, Elle Fanning, and then that guy, what's his name? Joel Courtney. I absolutely adore him. So they are super young in this, but they give really strong performances. It also has like a deep message and it has a lot to say as well, which I wasn't expecting. So it's gritty, it's got like a sci-fi twist, there's a little bit of horror in it, and it's got a really important message behind it too. The next film I checked out was a new release, and that is called Reality. Those of you that have already watched this know how amazing it is, and I know quite a few of you did, so if you have, let me know. If not, I would definitely recommend it. It has Sydney Sweeney in it, so that should be enough to convince you, but if you do need to know more, just know that it is a single location, unique thriller based on real events. It follows a lead character called Reality Winner, who comes home from work and finds agents outside her home ready to interrogate her, based on a classified document that she supposedly leaked. I won't say any more, but I will say that it's not one of the best films of the year, but it's definitely up there. If you're someone that likes to catch up on new releases for the year, I would definitely recommend this one. Sydney Sweeney and co give amazing performances. The single location is very claustrophobic and tight. The script is incredible, and a lot of it is actually taken from the real transcript of the event. So if you like a true story kind of feel, this is for you, and it has really clever editing the way it intertwines the transcript too. Definitely recommend it if you haven't already. If you're in America, it's on HBO Max as well, so very easy to access. I have been slowly working my way through the Halloween franchise because there's still a few I haven't seen, and this month I had a day off work because I had a really bad cold, so a slasher movie was in order and I opted for Halloween H2O 20 years later. I had an absolute blast. I know that not everybody likes this film, but for a silly, fun, doesn't take itself too seriously, but also has quite a lot to say slasher, I really enjoyed it. Jamie Lee Curtis comes back and is absolutely stunning in it. It's full of like that 90s, early 2000s cheese that I absolutely love. It's got early performances from the likes of, who was in it? Michelle Williams, I believe, was in it, and Josh Hartnett, who is obviously incredible. It's just, yeah, it's a Halloween film. It's a fun slasher. Michael gets a fair amount of screen time in this one, and there are some good kills, and it's just really fun to have this cast of characters together. I will be doing a Halloween ranking on my channel, so I don't want to go too much into what I think compared to the other movies, but it's around the middle. It's like high middle, I'd say, and I've still got a few left, so we'll see where it ends up by the end. Next, I opted for The Mighty Ducks, which is definitely one I should have watched as a kid, but for some reason I never got around to. I don't think my parents really showed me that one. I don't think it was on their radar. I absolutely loved The Mighty Ducks. It was, again, perfect for like a cozy day in bed feeling a bit shit. It's kind of like a sports drama based on Emilio Estevez's character. He hasn't played ice hockey for a while, and he gets into some crap and he has to end up coaching a young sports hockey team that aren't very good. You've heard that before. I know it's not exactly a unique premise. We've had this so many times. There's about 10 films that have probably come to your mind already with that premise. But I think this is one of the better ones. Super cheesy, super fun, really cool cast of characters. The kids are all awesome, and Emilio Estevez doing his thing, and I really enjoyed it. I finally caught up on a 2023 release that came out a few months back that I missed, and that is 1001. I'm happy to report that this is everything I thought it would be and more. It's a really, really poignant and thought-provoking drama based on a mother growing up. Where is it based? I can't actually remember. This is why I love having Letterboxd open when I do this, because I do genuinely forget a lot of minor details when I watch films. So yes, it's set in the 90s in New York City, that's correct. And I don't want to spoil too much because I went into this blind, and I think that's quite a good way to go. But it explores gentrification and motherhood across a lot of different other themes really, but those are the two that stood out to me the most. It follows a young mum who kidnaps her son and basically takes him off so that they can actually build their life together, and you see them both live their lives, and when the child becomes a teenager, it starts to catch up with them both. That's all I'll say. Go into it as blind as possible. It's a very slow-moving, thought-provoking character study sort of drama, so if that's your thing, you will absolutely love this one, and this very quickly made its way to the top of my list for this year. As a horror fan, I find it my duty to try and get through a couple classics every month, and there's still a lot of old school horror that I haven't seen. So this month I decided to check out David Cronenberg's The Brood. I really enjoyed Cronenberg as a director, but I definitely haven't seen enough, and after watching The Brood I'm so interested to check out more. I absolutely loved it. It basically, it's so hard to explain. I don't think I'm going to give a plot summary on this one, just because I think you should go in as blind as possible. Just manage expectations before you go in. It's not as horror fueled as some of his other films, but once it gets there, it's worth the wait basically. There's a few creepy moments along the runtime, but yeah, that ending is utterly disgusting. We all know that Cronenberg is a king when it comes to body horror, so definitely expect a little bit of that. It's an old one. It came out in 1979, and I wouldn't say it's one of my favourite Cronenbergs that I've seen, but I highly enjoyed it, mainly because of the performances, but also the story is super unique as well, which is why I don't want to spoil anything, and it's also a really hard one to explain. I think I'll make it sound more convoluted than it is, so just go in blind. If you want to look up a plot summary on Letterboxd, feel free. But if you're into your Cronenberg, you're into body horror, and you're into your unique horror stories, then this is definitely a film for you. The next film I checked out this month was also a horror film. It was a new release and it's called Brooklyn 45. This is a Shudder original, so if you did want to check it out, you can find it on there. This was an interesting one. Again, it didn't have as much horror in it as I hoped it would, but I find I didn't really mind. It was more one of those that kind of explores the ghosts of your past rather than actual ghosts, if you catch my drift without trying to spoil anything. So it's set in 1945 in Brooklyn, obviously, hence the title, and a group of friends all come together to have a cocktail evening, and they realise that the friend that invited them was up to something a little bit different, and then they all end up hashing out a lot of their guilt and a lot of their traumas that they faced during the war. Some of them more guilty than others, some of them regret their actions, some of them don't, and yeah, it's a single location horror, people hashing out their shit, and there is a couple of moments of body horror too. It gets a little gory in places, but the trauma lies within the awful events that they're discussing and how they try to overcome what they went through. I highly recommend this one. It's far from perfect, and the horror in it that does occur is a little bit on the underwhelming side. I kind of wish they didn't bother at all and just went for a thriller. But if you have Shudder, definitely check it out. I would recommend this one. I have been really enjoying Mike Flanagan lately. I've been watching a lot of his stuff, which I'll talk about a little bit later on in this video. His series I've been enjoying, and I will have a Mike Flanagan ranking coming soon as well. So to kind of start finishing off his filmography, I've got like 2 more to watch, I think. But this month, as it was on Netflix, I did watch Geralds Game, and this was an interesting one. I would say I recommend it, and I would say I 90% enjoyed it. The only issue I mainly had with it was the ending, and if you've seen it, you know. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it's completely tonally different to the rest of the movie, and it looks like it's been taken from another script and just shoved on the end of Gerald's Game. So if you don't know what this is, it's based on a Stephen King novel, and it's about a couple that are trying to like revitalise their relationship. So they go to like a remote cabin, and during a kinky game he handcuffs her to the bed, has a heart attack and dies, and she is left handcuffed to a bed. So it's got that survival element in it. It also goes into a lot of childhood trauma, which I wasn't expecting, so I would highly recommend looking at trigger warnings before you go into this film, because there was a lot in here, including assault, that I didn't know would be explored, and I kind of wish I knew that going in, just so I could be a little bit more prepared. So if you're someone that needs that, definitely look into the trigger warnings a little bit more. The survival horror element is really fun. There's a little bit of humour in the script that I really dug. It explores a lot of childhood trauma in a really deep way, which was very intriguing, and there was a lot of gore and body horror, and it really got to me and made me grimace and have to look away. Yeah, but like I said, the ending is wild, and it didn't completely ruin the movie for me, but it doesn't fit whatsoever. So I think I ended up giving this one like 3.5 stars or something, and before the ending it probably would have been like a solid 4, but I would recommend it nonetheless. It's Mike Flanagan and it's on Netflix, so you may as well. Next, I've been absolutely buzzing for this to come out. It's another new horror release, and if you watched Becky in 2020, I think it was like during COVID that came out. I remember watching it tucked up in bed. But anyway, Wrath of Becky came out this month, and oh my god, I really enjoyed it. Like they did in the first instalment, they had Kevin James playing the villain. They've done that again with Sean William Scott, so they've had like a comedy actor coming in to play like a really awful villain, and yeah, it's so good. It's just a violent time, really. It's 90 minutes of Lulu Wilson killing people. This time there's a dog involved as well, so if you like dogs in films, check this one out. But it's bloody, it's violent, it goes hard, and it also sets up for a sequel again, which I wouldn't mind. Based on the ending of this film, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this franchise has in store. Lulu Wilson is amazing in this role, and I would watch 10 of these. They're just super violent, super fun, and it's just her killing a bunch of people and a lot of blood. It's great. It's such a good time. Next. Oh, I would have to talk about this eventually. I knew I would, but I'm just not prepared, and I'm not going to do it justice. So I finally watched Beau is Afraid, and unfortunately Becca is disappointed. I knew going in that this wouldn't be for me, but it's Ari Aster and Joaquin Phoenix, so I had to give it a go anyway. It wasn't for me, and that's fine. I love Hereditary, I love Midsommar, so you know, it's 2 out of 3. What can I say? That's not that bad at all. The reason I didn't like Beau is Afraid, and I'm not even going to go into the plot summary because you all know, and if you don't, that's fine, you don't need to. It's 3 hours of anxiety, but not in a good way. It's a 3-hour fever dream. It's far too long. It's far too slow. I didn't get anything out of what I was trying to say. The messaging behind everything wasn't for me. I love the performance from Joaquin Phoenix, don't get me wrong. He was perfect for this, and he made it as compelling as I think it could have been. And the visuals are absolutely stunning too. The cinematography and the colours and all the set design and everything, immaculate. And I really love the fact that Ari Aster has just made a passion project and run with it, knowing that it probably would be pretty divisive and wouldn't win over a lot of people, but he did it anyway, and that's commendable in my opinion. It just wasn't for me. I didn't get anything out of what it was trying to say, and I found it a bit of a slog. My luck changed, and on the same day I managed to watch another favourite film of the year for me, and that is Are You There God? It's Me, Margaret. So the director of this has only done one film previously, and that was The Edge of 17, which is one of my favourite coming of age comedy dramas. And Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is another super fun, low stakes, sweet and hilarious coming of age comedy. So it's based on a little bit of a younger kind of age group than The Edge of 17. It's kind of like that 11, 12, 13 kind of mark, I think. But it's really, really lovely. It's really heartwarming. It reminded me of my childhood, even though I didn't grow up in America or in a religious family or anything like that. It still, some of the stuff that went down really ran true for me and just reminded me of my childhood. All the performances are exceptional. The young girl in the lead role, I've never seen her before, and I think she's going to have a great career ahead of her. We also have Rachel McAdams in here and Kathy Bates, and it's just so heartwarming and stunning. The performances are incredible. It's low stakes. It's based on a novel by Judy Blume, if you've heard of it before, and I would highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of coming of age like me. In preparation for Asteroid City coming out and getting a Wes Anderson ranking ready for you guys, I finally watched his first feature film, which is Bottle Rocket. And I did like it. I'm not going to go too far into my thoughts on Wes Anderson as a whole because I've got a video coming for that soon. But you can tell it's his feature debut, that's all I'll say. There's a few things in there, you can definitely see his signature style starting to take form with his kind of unique scripts and stuff like that. It's just that the aesthetic and the stories aren't quite there. I enjoyed what we got. I loved Owen and Luke Wilson in it. I thought they were fantastic together, and they give performances that are just as good as they do in Wes Anderson films today. It needed some fine-tuning. The story bored me a little bit at times. It was mainly intriguing, but there were times when I was hoping it would speed up a bit. It didn't offer much for me outside of that, really. I really enjoyed the performances, and I found the story really unique, and I still to this day haven't seen anything like it, so I commend it for that. But yeah, it's a feature debut and it shows a little bit. It's nowhere near up to the calibre of what he can do now, but I'm really glad to have watched it because I like seeing kind of where that all started for him, and you can definitely see bits and bobs of his newer, more popular work in it. So I'm glad I finally saw Bottle Rocket, and I would recommend it if you are a fan of Wes Anderson. I finally watched, I'm going to butcher this, it's a French film, it's called Petit Maman, I think I'm saying that right. And I didn't quite get out of it as much as other people did. I know a lot of people had it as their favourite of that year. I believe it was 2021, yeah. So I loved it. I loved what it was going for, what it was trying to say, and I loved its fantastical element. It wasn't my favourite of 2021 or anything like that. So basically what happens is a young girl loses her grandma, and with her mum and dad she goes to her grandma's home to clear it out and things like that. And she goes out to play in the woods how her mother used to when her mother grew up in that home, and she meets a young girl of her age and forms a bond with her. That's all I'll say. And the reason that's left quite open is because anything could be a spoiler. So what I would tell you to expect is a slow character kind of development sort of drama, exploring grief and how you kind of deal with that as a child, and it's a really, really unique and interesting perspective. The film's only 70 minutes long, so I definitely recommend it, especially if you're not sure about it. I think 70 minutes is quite a good one to push yourself through anyway. If something's 3 hours and you're not sure about it, then you'll never get around to it. But 70 minutes, what's your excuse? Go for it. I'm really glad I did. I still gave it a positive score. I gave it 4 out of 5 or something. And I loved how it explored childhood grief and how we kind of deal with that, and how things that happen in our childhood can kind of filter into our adulthood as well. It goes into that a little bit. The child performances are amazing. The cinematography is beautiful, especially all the scenes that are shot in the forest. I really enjoyed those. And yeah, like I said, 70 minutes long. Definitely give it a go if you missed it during 2021. I was also super, super excited to see that Robert Rodriguez Planet Terror was on Mubi, and I'm a huge fan of Death Proof and I love the whole grindhouse vibe. So I decided to finally sit down with Planet Terror, and it was totally bonkers, but I really, really dug it. Rose McGowan is insane in it, and if you know anything about this film, you'll know the really famous shot of her bolting a gun onto the end of her leg because it's cut off, and it's just, that is what to expect from the whole film. It's really gnarly, it's got so much disgusting body horror, and it's just totally batshit from start to finish. The basic plot is that it's a virus type film. People get this virus where they come out in sores that pop, and it's really disgusting, and anyone that comes near them turns into like a zombie type thing. It's full to the brim with action. It's a Robert Rodriguez film, so you kind of know what to expect from that. And I would definitely recommend pairing it with Death Proof for the double feature. That was obviously what it was intended for. I didn't view it this way, but I kind of wish I did. Also, side note, trigger warnings for like assault and stuff again. And Tarantino is in this film and he's playing a creep, just like he did in From Dusk Till Dawn and Rodriguez's other film with Tarantino. It's, yeah, he has a tendency to come along and play creeps, and it's really, it's a lot. It's not too much of the film, it's only like a 5-10 minute scene, so it's nothing too harrowing, but yeah, creepy bloke. Anyway, Planet Terror, really good for horror fans and especially action fans. It merges the two together really, really nicely. It's batshit, it's bonkers, it's totally crazy, and the body horror, it's probably worth watching for that alone. I highly recommend it, it's so much fun. Continuing on with the Mike Flanagan trend, I've only got 2 more to watch by him, by the way, which I'm very excited about. But I also watched Before I Wake, which is one of his Netflix originals. It was a little bit earlier. What year was it? 2016? Yeah. And it's got a child performance from one of our favourites, Jacob Tremblay. So I had to watch it. And it turns out that I love it more than anyone. I didn't really see many issues with it. And then I went onto Letterboxd and realised it had a really low score, which I was kind of gutted about because I thought it was really good. So it's a horror film about a young boy who is going through the care system because he can't really settle in, because he has this mysterious gift where his dreams project. Sometimes this is good if it's a beautiful dream, but if it's a nightmare, obviously people end up in danger. This film covers a lot of ground. It's got horror in it, mainly relies on jump scares, so I wouldn't watch it just for its horror alone. It has incredible performances and it goes into a lot of deep themes which I won't spoil because there's a reveal in the end that really shocked me and I really, really enjoyed it for that. So it's a unique premise. It's nothing like I've ever seen before. It's got great acting in it, especially from Tremblay. And it's got Mike Flanagan's blueprint all over it. So if you do tend to enjoy his direction, you'll definitely like this one. I gave it 3.5 and its average on Letterboxd was like under the 3 mark. So I was really upset by that, and I do think it's worth a watch. A little bit cliche in places. Some of the horror isn't too great and it does rely on jump scares. But outside of that, I think it's really good and I was really pleasantly surprised by it, especially after seeing the ratings before I went in. I'm about to talk about 2 absolute bangers and I'm so excited. So I finally watched, this is on Mubi as well, I finally watched Park Chan-wook's The Handmaiden and Chef's Kiss. One of the best films I saw all month. I gave it 4.5 out of 5. I absolutely fell in love with it. Such a good Pride Month watch as well. I didn't even realise what it was about. I just went in completely blind. And it did have a sex scene in it that I thought was one of the most like realistic I've ever seen, which I always appreciate. When it's not all for show and it's like, you know. Anyway, I won't go into The Handmaiden in too much detail because A, I don't want to spoil it, I want you to go in as blind as me, and B, again, I think I'll make it sound a little bit more convoluted than it is. But it's a non-linear storytelling about 2 people that infiltrate somebody and make her fall in love with them basically so they can steal her fortune. That's all I'll say. And I can't even tell you what's good about it because it's just everything. It's the performances, it's the score, it's the cinematography, it's the script. Everything is perfect and I couldn't really fault this film. The only reason I didn't give it a perfect score was because I did feel the runtime during a couple of scenes. And I don't tend to give 5 stars on my first viewing anyway. But it's one of my favourite Park Chan-wook films I've seen. I do need to watch more though. I've only seen like 3 or 4, I think. It's the best movie I've watched on Mubi this month, and yeah, just one of the best films I've watched in general, probably all year. I highly recommend The Handmaiden if you haven't seen it already. I finally got to see Asteroid City and I am obsessed. I think it's a really good return to form from Wes Anderson. I don't think he fell off too much. I was cool with The French Dispatch and Isle of Dogs is one of my favourites of his, but yeah, his signature style was probably utilised to its very, very fullest, the most it ever has been in this film, but I think it works. I absolutely love it. The story is unique, it's charming, it's quirky, it's sweet. The aesthetic, it's got these lovely like yellow, pink, warm tones that make it pop and it makes it so bright and indulgent. And it's set in the desert as well, so that allows for some really gorgeous cinematography to pull through as well. Tom Hanks is a really good addition to the Wes Anderson universe. His acting fits this style perfectly. Scarlett Johansson was amazing, and Jason Schwartzman in the lead role just as exceptional as ever. Basically, it follows a group of people that come to a town called Asteroid City for like a space-themed convention, and stuff happens. I don't want to spoil it anymore. It's so uplifting, it's so full of joy. It has that play within a play narrative that Wes Anderson plays around with a lot, and it works really well. Edward Norton, Bryan Cranston, Tom Hanks, Scarlett Johansson, Jason Schwartzman, Maya Hawke, Margot Robbie, Rupert Friend. I could continue. The cast is absolutely stacked. This does unfortunately mean that sometimes people get minimal screen time. Like, I really wish we got more of Tom Hanks. I really wish we got more of Rupert Friend. But because there's so many people in it that are amazing, you're not going to get as much as you want of everyone. And wanting more of something, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I love it. I love Wes Anderson. He's my favourite director of all time. So I was kind of bound to love this one anyway, but I loved it even more than I thought I would. Such a cute little story, and I loved the sharp, snappy dialogue, and it's good to have Wes Anderson back. 2 more films to talk about. Sorry, this has been a long one, but I do watch a lot of movies. So one of these is pretty bad, and one of them I enjoyed more than I thought I would. They are both Netflix originals. First one was Run, Rabbit, Run. I didn't have particularly high hopes going into this one, but as someone that doesn't watch Succession, I'd heard so much about Sarah Snook. And as she was cast in this film, she was the lead. I kind of wanted to see what she had to offer because I've not really seen much from her. She was amazing. She is not at fault for this film. She gives a really good performance, and I really liked her. It's the script that sucked, basically. This is my least favourite film I've watched all month. It's basically about a mother and daughter. Think The Babadook, but not as good. The daughter starts to question her identity, and she thinks she's somebody else. She thinks she's got like this past life, and it really freaks the mother out because she shouldn't know any of the stuff that she does about the family. And I won't spoil anymore. Not that I recommend watching it, but you know, I don't want to spoil over here. This is a spoil-free zone. Sarah Snook, amazing. Everything else, not. The script was so repetitive. The attempts at horror don't work whatsoever. It shouldn't have even been a horror. It's more of a thriller, but yeah, any attempts at horror are feeble. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about it. It was just not great. There was some nice cinematography in there, but it's just a mother and daughter arguing, and the mum saying the same thing to the daughter over and over again, and it got really boring and repetitive really quickly. The kid was annoying. The mum was just being scatty and all over the place, and it didn't have any final payoff either. I think all of that would have been kind of worth it if it had something more to say in the end. And it is kind of like the whole film is the mum figuring out her childhood trauma and dealing with her past, but there's no payoff and it doesn't work for me. Finally, the last film I watched this month is Extraction 2. I'm not an action gal, but I do like Chris Hemsworth, and because I watched the first one, I felt like I kind of had to watch the second one. It was so good! Did anyone else like watch this like thinking, oh god, not another one, and think, whoa, that was actually pretty insane? Because that's exactly how I felt. There's a 21-minute oneer in this film, and obviously it's not all shot in one take, but you believe it, and it looks amazing. This film is action to action. It doesn't stop, it doesn't slow down. The plot is far less convoluted than the first one. Chris Hemsworth just as good. He's a proper action star. I really enjoy him in this film. What else is there that's good? Like, yeah, it's the camera work is amazing as well. Like the way it like follows the action happening. It's so well done. And for a Netflix original action film, I didn't have high hopes, and it really, you know, it really impressed me. It's not perfect. There's some corny dialogue here and there, and it's, you know, it's an action film. It's not made for me. I'm not the target audience. But for what it was, I was thoroughly impressed, and I'm really glad I checked it out. I recommend you do as well. If you're a little bit underwhelmed by the first one, I think this will definitely win you back. Before I go, I just wanted to let you guys know I watched 2 miniseries this month, and I also watched Black Mirror season 6. You know all my thoughts on that because that was what my last video was based on. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. I'll link it down below. It's a ranking of Black Mirror season 6, so come chat with me about Black Mirror down there. But I did also, like I said earlier, I've been watching a lot of Mike Flanagan, and I finally watched The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor. Hill House is the best thing I've watched. I want to say all year. That's a lot. That is a big statement from me, from someone that doesn't really like series, but I fell in absolute love with The Haunting of Hill House. Every episode was wonderful. The performances from everyone involved were insane, particularly Victoria Pedretti, who literally, oh, she killed it. She was absolutely incredible. I loved her performance here. It's a sad series. There's a lot of family drama, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of sad scenes, but there's also a lot of uplifting family moments too, and I loved kind of the broken family coming back together, and yeah, it's just amazing. Any horror that is present as well works really, really well. I think this is Mike Flanagan's magnum opus. Well, I say that, I'm halfway through Midnight Mass and I'm fucking loving it, so we'll see how that goes in next month's wrap up. But Haunting of Hill House, incredible, stunning, my whole personality, I'm obsessed with it, and I can't wait to rewatch it and rewatch it. One of the reveals in this show, I think, is one of my favourite reveals of all time, and that's not even me exaggerating. I am obsessed. It is phenomenal. Also, quickly about Bly Manor, watching it after Hill House made it seem, you know, it's not as good. I know we all know that, but watching it after Hill House was probably a bit of a mistake because I was quite underwhelmed. I gave it a positive score, I think. I use the app Serialized for my TV shows, by the way. And I think over there I gave it 3.5 out of 5, so nothing bad. I really enjoyed it, and Victoria Pedretti is the lead in this one, and she's just as good as she is in Hill House. Yeah, the horror in here is not as strong as during Hill House. It's more of a romance, and I do enjoy romance, so I did like it for that. But I would definitely recommend both series. Hill House, definitely better. Bly Manor has some pacing issues. It feels a little bit long for the story being told, and there's not enough horror for my liking, but I thoroughly enjoyed both. And if by chance you haven't seen them, I would definitely recommend them, but I know you probably have. 2 episodes left of Midnight Mass. I think then 2 more Mike Flanagan films, and I'll have my ranking ready for you. Midnight Mass is really impressing me so far, but I'll talk about that next month. Thank you for watching. If you're still watching as well, props to you, because I've been talking for ages. I've watched so many films this month. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and I can definitely do it again every month. Also, let me know down below what you've watched, what your favourite movies were. You may notice I didn't talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I watched that in July, so you'll have to wait until then, unfortunately. But if you follow me on Letterboxd, the link will be down below. You'll be able to see my thoughts on that one. Thank you for joining me. Let me know what you've watched down below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.